Let's talk more about this with the Conservative MP for Stoke-on-Trent, Jonathan Gullis, and Asylum and Refugee Specialist Louise Calvey. Good afternoon to you both. Jonathan, it might be unconventional to a Conservative, but have Labour gone and shot your fox and sorted this thing out?
No, Ian, what's happened is this is Labour's migrant amnesty, as you and I both know, as well as the great British public. Essentially, what will happen is Labour's going to allow 90,000 plus people be able to have the right to remain in the UK indefinitely. That's towns the size of Hartlepool, Darlington, Redditch, Bracknell, suddenly sprouting up out of nowhere, and with the great British public having to foot the bill for more hotels, more accommodation, more school places, more pressure on our NHS. And it simply goes to prove that Labour don't want a deterrent. They've said they'll cancel the Rwanda flights. They don't have a plan on how to stop the boats. In fact, this idea of theirs, or idea in inverted commas, will actually act as aiding and abetting the smuggling gangs, who will then be able to say, get to the UK, you'll have a better chance of staying. You won't be deported under this Labour government. And they'll just break our system. And essentially, the only way they'll fix it is what they always do, which is basically just gives everyone the right to stay here and hope that we won't notice.
Yeah, but
we know Islam was never a free movement, and he's playing it out live in front of our faces.
He says, or they say, that you might think that, but we've got you on this one, Jonathan, because what they're going to do is employ an army of 1,000 people to process these claims. So you give the people status, asylum status, and then it becomes a point of debate as to whether they stay or go. If you do that, then you can process them. At the moment, you can't process them because they are in no man's land. This will change that, and 1,000 people will make the difference, and then these people will be either allowed to stay or return to another safe country. Job done, says Sakir.
So my challenge back to that, Ian, is that actually we've already processed 129,000 people in the backlog already, but it's all well and good speeding up processing, but where are you going to send the people if they've claimed and you've agreed that they are from Iran, if they're from Eritrea, if they're from Syria? Is the Labour Party seriously saying they're going to do a returns deal with those countries?
Yep.
If they are, what are we willing to give away? National security essentially would be at risk in this type of situation. So the only real then option is to then let them stay in the UK, whereas in what we're saying is let's deport them to Rwanda, which is a safe country, something that the Labour Party disagrees with. But our first migrant who has now been deported, albeit through the voluntary scheme, has agreed themselves that Rwanda is a safe country for them to go to. And there'll be many more through the voluntary and through deportation schemes that we'll be enacting in the coming months. Labour is just simply not being honest or straight with the British public. But why would anyone think that? Because we saw Wes Streeting's disgusting tweet last night saying if you vote Conservative, you're basically a white supremacist and a racist. That shows you the Labour Party hasn't changed. They're the same old student union politics, particularly with Wes, who was president of the NUS.
Louise Calvey is also with us, Asylum and Refugee Specialist. Put some meat on the bones then, Louise. Jonathan has constructed what I think many people would say is a reasonable argument as to why the Labour position is simply not workable in the way that they want the British public to think. This will result in essentially an amnesty in all but name.
Hello, Ian. I'm struggling to understand, to be honest, Jonathan's perspective on this. These are people that are already in the United Kingdom. Refugee Council are projecting that by the time we have a general election towards the end of 2024, the numbers of people that will be trapped without status in this country and largely not removable will be 115,000 people just by the time of an election, and that will be growing day on, day out. That's going to cost us in the region of £6.2 billion. That's what this Conservative Party have done to our migration system. What we need to be doing, quite simply, is enabling people to claim asylum, process their claims, make decisions. You can't just leave 100,000 people trapped in the UK without status, without knowing. The authorities won't know where they are. They will be people living in the shadows, in exploitation, criminal exploitation, labour exploitation, sexual exploitation. They won't be able to claim benefits. They won't be able to work. They won't be able to get any regularised accommodation. It is utter nonsense for anyone to suggest that that's a good thing for any ordinary and normal border system. You can't simply close the asylum system because you don't like having refugees in the country. And that seems to be the Conservative perspective.
Do you recognise that, Jonathan Gullis?
No, these aren't refugees because they're coming from safe mainland France, ultimately. France is a NATO member, a UN founder, a nuclear power, a well-established democracy. People are not in needing of fleeing from France and essentially needlessly risking their lives, putting tens of thousands of pounds in the hands of smuggling gangs. And what actually we're trying to do by having a deterrent is stop people wanting to get into those boats, smash apart the smuggling gangs, stop the loss of life in the English Channel, and therefore reduce the tax burden as well by not having to use hotels, not seeing people ending up in the black market, as Louise was talking about earlier, and therefore making sure that we have those safe and legal routes, which we do have in place. 500,000 people since 2015 have come to this country from war-torn countries directly, particularly predominantly women and children, who are obviously the most vulnerable. So the UK continues and always will do its part. But the idea somehow of just claiming these are all refugees and asylum seekers, by somehow claiming these people are fleeing war-torn countries when they're coming from France, and the idea of just saying, oh, well, we'll allow 115,000 people to say, is absurd. We need to make it clear that if you come to this country illegally, you will be deported, you will not have a right to claim asylum, and that's why the Prime Minister is bang on the money. And the great British public, believe me, if Louise wants to come door knocking around Stoke-on-Trent North Kids Go and talk, she's more than welcome to find that out.
Yeah, Louise, an invite to Stoke-on-Trent aside, which is a fantastic place, we know that. But I mean, Jonathan's point is that the current Conservative policy, whilst taking a lot of time to catch up with itself, is by far the most honest one of the set alongside the proposal from Labour.
All this government has done is disincentivise people claiming asylum and engaging with the system. None of the numbers are going down. There is no disincentivisation of people coming to the United Kingdom. They are disincentivising engagement in the Home Office in orderly border management systems. It is catastrophic in terms of any form of ordinary border management systems. And Jonathan knows